Coming this Thanksgiving, Audible.com presents a performance of award-winning author Regina Puckett's book, Concealed in My Heart. This sweet romance is narrated by George Taylor. Can Charity win over a snippy co-star? The one person who took an immediate dislike to Charity found little ways to be insulting throughout each routine. The actress' name was Betty Florence, and by late afternoon she decided to let Charity know her true feelings less subtly. Betty was a seasoned actress who had worked in several productions and was the most experienced in the group of women. She wasn't a big name, but Charity had recognized her right away from a few bad B-movies she had seen in high school. Betty was a tall, leggy woman with over-processed blonde hair. She would have been a nice-looking lady if she didn't always have such a sour expression on her face. It was during a water break that Betty tried to win some points with the other ladies by challenging Charity, but the moment she started with her catty comments about Charity's inexperience, the others casually made their way off somewhere else. Even though Charity had heard everything Betty had been saying, she pretended not to hear, in the best interest of keeping things civil. She found an empty spot on the field and sat to drink her water. That worked for about 2 minutes. The aged blonde took a seat on the grass next to her and then shifted her weight so she could lean toward Charity. She rested her cup of water on her knee. If she had ever been attractive, it was wiped away by the sneer on her face. "Well, there's no accounting for taste, is there?" Charity took another sip and pretended to be interested in what was happening on the men's side of the field. Betty cleared her throat and spoke louder. "I said I guess that there's no accounting for taste." Charity realized then that feigning ignorance wasn't going to work, and finally locked eyes with the bitter woman. "I'm sorry, are you talking to me?" Now that Betty had Charity's attention, she smiled brightly. "You bet, sweetie. I've worked with Charles on a few things, and I have a hard time believing he would sleep with someone like you." Charity mentally did an eye roll and only kept her cool by swallowing hard a couple of times before speaking again. "Well, now I know that you're not talking to me because I haven't slept with Charles. My name is Charity. You must have me mistaken for someone else." Betty crossed her ankles before meeting Charity's eyes again. It was easy to see just how much gratification she was getting from spreading lies. "Oh, no, sweetie, you're exactly the person I'm talking to. Don't try that little innocent game with me, girlie. I've been around far too long for that. I know your type. You couldn't get a job with your talent, so you used the only commodity you had to get the job. Charles must be losing it if he fell for the likes of you. But I have noticed how older men will sometimes fall for any sweet young thing who throws themselves in front of them." Charity took a moment to wipe sweat from various areas of her body before replying. "The first movie I ever saw you in was The Teenage Killer Among Us. You're a very talented screamer. Is that something you're born with, or does it come from a lot of practice and hard work?" Charity was seizing this opportunity to practice her own needed restraint. More and more exposure to the world of filmmaking made her realize how desperately she needed it. It took every ounce of control she had not to scratch out the fake blonde's eyes. "Do you mind if I call you by your first name? It's Betty, isn't it?" Betty appeared somewhat deflated suddenly and finally shrugged as she replied, "Sure, everyone calls me Betty." Charity took a long drink of water and took several deep breaths before continuing. "Thanks, Betty. You know, we're going to be spending a lot of time together. It would be great if we could get along. Charles is a very nice man. I don't think it ever crossed his mind to sleep with me. I would appreciate it if you didn't spread nasty rumors like that around. I'm almost certain if Charles ever heard about this, your job might be in jeopardy." From the blank expression on Betty's face, it was obvious the wheels were slowly turning in that little brain of hers. Her tone betrayed an effort to hold on to the nasty attack she'd begun, but also her fear that she may have made a mistake. "Well, I don't know if you and Charles have been intimate or not, but I guess you're right about us getting along. It's not going to get me anywhere if Charles finds out that we have had this conversation." Charity almost chuckled, but managed to keep a straight face. Betty leaned an elbow on the ground and looked up at the sky. In a probably well-practiced, matter-of-fact tone, she continued, "And to answer your question, it takes a lot of practice. I screamed day and night trying to ready for that movie. I had the neighbors calling the police reporting that I was in danger. It was a lot of fun. Not every movie is fun to do. Some are just plain old work." She smirked at Charity's red face and sweat-soaked hair. "But I guess you're finding that out the hard way, aren't you?" Concealed in My Heart will be available around Thanksgiving from Audible.com. If you've never bought from Audible.com, your first book is free. Why not Concealed in My Heart?